So, hey, everybody, and welcome to the Solidity Insurance Group Agency call. My name is Marisa Maggio, and it is December 19th of 2024. So we are soonly going into the new year, and I'm really excited about it. As much as this year has been amazing, I always like to think next year just has so much more and different experiences to hold. And that's the exciting part about it, right? But we do have a very special guest on with us today, one of my best mentors I've ever had in this business. And I'm so thankful to have in this business. And every facet. When I say that he's literally done anything from personally produce to hire and build teams that, his group is now helping many, many, many families a month. I'm not that good at math, so I can't say it. But without further ado, we have Mr. Trey Honeycutt on with us today. Trey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks for being on. And Trey, one thing I feel like, you're really good at is essentially when you put your mind to something, I feel like you typically go after it and you get there, right? It's probably not always easy though. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's 100% true.
Yeah. So,
Anything worth doing is usually not that easy.
that's right. And with that being said, I asked Trey to come on with us today and talk to us a little bit about goals, whether that's, different ways that we can set our own goals, different ways that Trey has set goals in the past and maybe has seen failure or seen success, just kind of good takeaways towards the end of the year. So Trey, thanks for being on.
Well, thanks for having me. This is my favorite group to speak with. You guys are doing phenomenal things. It's really cool seeing that leaderboard, seeing how much Heather did, and Brittany on there, and Nicole on there, and new people writing. The new writers every week are increasing, and it's just exciting to see. I mean, you guys have a great system, and it's working. We're all working together, and I think my goal for 2025 is 25 lock-ins. And so to talk about that, lock-ins are super powerful because we do a lot on Zoom, and that's great. I'm at a lock-in right now. But the thing that's most powerful is actually just being in the room with a bunch of background noise of other people dialing their leads while you're dialing your leads, because you could absorb so much by hearing and being involved and being invested in other people's process and the relationships you're able to build. Because at the end of the day, more than anything else, this is the people business and it's the relationship business. And it's really hard to feel connected to the vine when you're just on Zoom all the time. Like one of everybody's goal on here for 2025 is, what do I have to do to become more connected? Because this is a really hard thing to do by yourself. It's lonely. It's not always fun. It you don't have to do anything for the weeds to grow. They'll just naturally grow. You do have to be proactive in plucking the weeds. And what I mean by that is like just being by yourself, dialing in your spare bedroom, during the day between snacks. Um, it gets it gets demoralizing and sad over time, especially if you get a few chargebacks in a day and five no shows, and you're in the middle of closing one, and the daughter comes in and says, "No, Dad, that's a scam," and hangs up on you. If you're by yourself in that process all the time, even being connected on Zoom, it's really easy to get jaded. And so I would encourage you to look for ways to get around everybody else and stay close to the fire. So that's why in 2025, my goal is to have 25 lock-ins in our organization. And just to give you an idea how this one's going to work in Birmingham. So what I'm going to do, Heather, is I'm going to rent a Airbnb. And so the way this works best is like if there's local agents, they're local, right? They don't have to stay at the Airbnb. They can drive in, they can drive home, they can drive back, they can drive home. If you're coming into the event, Rami, Marisa, Christina, Heather, you guys stay at the Airbnb. Like Heather, you don't got to get a spot. You stay at that one. There's enough bedrooms. Everybody gets a room. It'll be fine. The people that are in the area or within driving distance, or they come in and they work, they go back to their house or their hotel, and they come back and they work. But the ones coming in with me, you guys have a spot. So that's how that goes. Um, we're going to cover breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We're going to have a brief training in the morning to kick it off. We're going to keep each other motivated. We're going to bond. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to take a walk at lunch. we're, we're gonna we're gonna come back and dial some more. We're gonna keep tally. We're gonna have a contest, see who sells the most, and it's gonna be a ton of fun. And I'm super excited about doing it. I've been to dozens of them now, and I'm excited to start doing them inside of our team because I've seen the effect and what that's done throughout the company and how that's really become really the linchpin of the whole organization is people congregating and selling together. Now, as far as goals specifically, one of the things I like to talk to people about, especially this time of the year, is just reflecting on 2024 and the questions that you're asking yourself. What went right? What could I have done better? What could I have done differently? Whose fault was it? Whenever it comes time to like set goals and think about the future, the first thing we have to do is just take accountability for where we are. A big mistake people make in this business is they want to blame everybody else when it doesn't work out. And listen, my I've gone through pretty much anything you can go through in this business. And I can tell you that even when it wasn't my fault, I acted like it was. And the reason why I did that is because if you don't do that, you give all the power away. But if you take 100% of the responsibility for where everything is, whether it's your fault or not, I mean, trust me, I understand things can happen and sometimes things aren't your fault. But as soon as you put the blame on somebody else, you actually give the responsibility away and you can't change it. So the first step is what went right, what went wrong, what could I have done differently? Where do I want to go? How am I going to get it? How am I going to get there? And what do I need to remove from my life in order to get there? And why is it important? These are other questions you need to ask. Like for a long time, people would put on me this idea of like my wife not working. For like 10 years of the first 10 years of our marriage, I walked around with this complex like I was a bad human because my wife had a job. She had a job when I met her. If we won the lottery tomorrow, when I became an integrity partner, she kept her job. It was never even a thought. But if they dropped $100 million in my bank account tomorrow, my wife would still teach first graders how to read because that's what she does. That's how it is. So for a long time, I was running around like I did something wrong because I knew in my mind that she wasn't ever going to quit her job anyway. What I'm trying to say is your motivation for whatever it is you're trying to accomplish needs to be your motivation and your reason. So most of the time people don't get to where they go because they really haven't sat down and thought about and gotten clear about what it is that they actually want and why. So that's the first step. The next step is give yourself time. When you're brand new in this business, the most stressful part of this business is the comparison part because Brittany's doing awesome and she's amazing and she did 10K like her first 2 days or I'm exaggerating, it wasn't that quick. But there's somebody on this call that got started 4 months ago. And they haven't had a 10K week yet. And the danger is looking at it and going, oh, well, Brittany did it, but I haven't done it yet. Therefore, I'm failing, so it must not work. The thing you have to understand is the right perspective in this business is I do not know the person that's done it consistently for a year that's not good at it. I do not know the person. The person does not exist.
Yeah.
They might be a pain in the neck. They might be the worst communicator in the world. They might get on your nerves, but I don't know the person that's consistently done the activity that cannot write a lot of insurance after a year.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. So what I see a lot of people do is they overestimate what they can accomplish in a week or two or a month, and they overestimate and they underestimate what they can accomplish in a year or two. So the best decision you could ever make in this business is just decide that you're going to stick around. And here's the other thing I figured out. I didn't figure it out. It was somebody told me this and it turned out to be true. But they said, look, life will keep presenting you the same problem over and over and over again until you figure out how to fix it. Like I had a phone call with somebody the other day and he was complaining to me about the same thing he complained to me about 2 years ago. It's the same thing. And I'm like, dude, you don't buy leads and you don't have a schedule. That's what the problem is. But what do you think the problem is? You don't buy leads and you don't have a schedule. And he's like, well, I'm thinking about going somewhere else. You should do that. Because when you get there, you're going to find out that you're going to have the same problem of not buying leads and not having a schedule. So it'll continue to present you the same problem over and over. It's like Groundhog Day until you figure out the solution. That's the way this business works. So making a decision that you're going to stick and stay until you figure it out, I will until, is the single most important thing you could do in this business, because there isn't a person that can't do it. We're not supposed to say everyone can do it. Okay. Everyone can't dunk a basketball. Everyone can't run a football through 11 bodies into the end zone. Um, everybody can't hit home runs. Everybody can't ice skate. But everybody can get good enough at the script and their tonality to make enough sales to make this profitable eventually. Eventually. I'm not saying you can do it in a week or two, but you eventually can get really good at it. So the thing that's going to help, and the thing that always helps, and the thing that I use this time of year for consistently, is just putting into perspective where I am. Like, you go on social media, you think everybody's rich. Like, since social media is weird, it's weird. Everybody's got courtside tickets and all this. They don't have any money. Like, people don't have money. Where's all the money? But you can get confused or tricked into the idea that everybody's so much more successful than you are. So what you have to do is be real purposeful about the proper perspective. Like, people say this is hard. Compared to what? Compared to what? It's hard to dial all day, air conditioned in your house or in the office or on Zoom with your friends. Or is it hard to roof houses at 115-degree temperatures in the middle of summer in Phoenix? That's hard. Like, they say, well, what's hard? Taking your mom off life support. That's hard. You know, perspective is everything. Like, go. One of the things I was blessed with, and it's hard to say, especially this time of year for me, it's hard to say this was a blessing, but it was a blessing, is both my parents died young. And I saw incredible suffering for, like, I remember going to chemo with my mom, and the most astounding part of going to chemo was when I walked in and, like, there were people younger than me doing chemo that you wouldn't think were sick. And I realized, like, these problems I think I have, like, they're not problems. Anything you can write a check for isn't a problem. It's a situation. But when you have terminal cancer, that's a problem. You know, when something really bad happens, having the right perspective, like, it's just a no-show. It's people. I know this guy in the business, and I got to be careful when I say this stuff. I don't want people to figure out who it is. But this dude, this this has been a long time ago, and he bought a batch of leads in a certain area code, and he is convinced that, and there was like 25 of them, and he didn't make any sales. And to this day, he thinks that was a detrimental part of his business. Oh, and I bought those leads over there in that one area. Yeah, that was rough. Dude, it was 25 leads that didn't buy. Like, you have the wrong perspective. Like, there's people that go Hall of Fame in that area just there. It- it- you gotta you gotta learn how to not make permanent decisions off temporary emotions and overgeneralize. This works, this will always work, but it only works if you put the work in. And it's really easy to spend a lot of time thinking about the business and actually not doing the business and feel like you're working. And that's why it's important to plug into stuff like this. And that's why it's important to be on the Zoom. And that's why it's important to go to the conference and get to the lock-ins, because you realize the best part of any of these events is to see the people that you think are superheroes not get past being able to send over their credentials, you know, like getting hung up on there, getting yelled at for no reason. Like, I didn't do it. When Heather calls a lead and you hear the person on their line said, I didn't do it. This is a scam. You're like, they said that to me too. Like, when you go to the conference and you hear people's stories about what they had to deal with and what they had to overcome, and what their family said about what they were doing and how they quit their job and how nervous they were, and and how their back was against the wall and how it all didn't work all the time and how they got chargebacks and how they overcame these things. It's stuff that's real life that you can relate to, that you could take something from it and you can implement it right away. But more than that, it gets you back in the right frame of mind with that right perspective, that even a bad day doing this is still better than like anything else you can do. Like this morning, I dropped my son off at the airport. So I should have left the house at 4 a.m. I would have got to lock it on time. But I left the house at we were supposed to leave at 5:30. He was late. Whatever. Six doesn't seem like it's a big deal. His plane leaves at 9:30. He's going to go tour a college campus on his own. A group of them, we're meeting and they're going to tour this campus and go to a basketball game. Then they do some stuff tomorrow and fly home. And parents don't get to go. You know. So all morning I was like, "What? And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to Dre, and she wakes up. I'm like, why do you wake up at 4? You never wake up at 4. But she had to make sure he was okay to go do his college tour. So she's like, you want some eggs? Like, you don't feed us eggs at 4. Like, this is crazy. But anyway, she's a good mom. So he said, this is weird. Like, I like this whole college thing, I suppose, but he's just gonna sell insurance anyway. Like what are we doing? Like, he's accustomed to living a certain way. You can't make that kind of money working in the Department of Forestry. I mean, the kid's been on like 4 forest hikes. He wants to be a ranger. I'm like, dude, like, that's cool. Go do your thing. We'll pay for it. I got you. But you're going to just sell insurance anyway, because there really isn't anything else where you can make the type of income and have the type of lifestyle and have the type of freedom and decisions to make choices that you have when you figure this out. Figuring this out is like the financial code of life breaks open because there's freedom in it. There's freedom in knowing that I can get a stack of leads as bad as I am today. I'm figuring out I'm bad. I haven't done it in a while, but I can get some leads and I can call them and I can make sales. I can make a living, regardless of what happens with the team. I can do it based on how hard I'm willing to work and how good I can keep my attitude through rejection. And that really is the test of this whole thing. Like the muscle that you're going to build as you do this is that muscle of like, I can take rejection and I can just brush it off and I can just keep going. Back when we did in-home, it was a crutch for me because if somebody told me no, I'm in Southern California, it would take me an hour to get to the next one. So I had time to get over it, you know? Like with this, you got to call another person right away. So you learn to get over it a lot quicker and not take it personal. But once you master those things, this is like the best thing you could ever do. I mean, there isn't anything else like this business. And going to events, lock-ins, getting on Zoom, watching people succeed, like what Brittany's been able to do and what Nicole's been able to do, and Jaden making his first sale, and Jaden's dad. I remember we were talking on the recruiting call. His dad's an expert salesman. He's like, yeah, my dad's thinking about it. As soon as Jaden sells 10K a week, his dad's in. And the belief and understanding of what you have and how amazing it really, truly actually is. Because we live in this bubble. We're all insurance people. So you get jaded to it. Like we talk about these incomes. Okay, I'm not going to say a name, but I was talking to this agent. I was like, hey, how much are you making a month from overrides? And the agent was like, 60. It's like, and they felt bad about it. Like it wasn't, they were failing. And I'm like, wait, let's just think about this. Like you just set a number that most people will never make in like a lot of people don't make that in a year. Household incomes are 6 figures, but there's a lot of people that don't make a 6 figure annual salary at their job, even with overtime. I know government employees that do overtime that barely break 6 figures in 2024. So you start talking about 60 in a month, like that's amazing. But we get jaded to it. But once you step outside this, like the best thing I ever did is I kept friends outside of insurance. So, so I talked to my friends outside of insurance, and I'm just like, we're really blessed. Yes, people cancel. Yes, agents quit. Yes, people lie. Yes, Bob had cancer and said he was perfectly healthy, and then Mutual of Omaha declined him. All these things happen, but it's still better than anything else I could do. And it's more fun. And I get a chance to actually do something important that's actually really helping people. Um, I know it's about goals, and this definitely shouldn't be a goal. Like nobody should have a goal to have a death claim. Like we don't want to have death claims. But I can tell you that when you do have a death claim, it really does change the whole thing for you, especially when it's one that you fought for and you can remember it. Like, dude, that guy was about to punch me in the face. Can't believe I said that. You know, then he got it, but then he died. And now his wife and kids have money that they wouldn't have had, and she doesn't have to go get a job. Like that happened to me. And that really changed the way that I look at what it is that I'm doing. Um, for those of you that are new, that are struggling with calling leads, feeling like you're bothering people, I want to share this with you because it comes to mind based on the story I just told you, right? You're not bothering them, they're bothering you. Like they filled out the form, they asked for the help. What's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen is they die without the insurance. What up?
What's up, Dom?
Yeah, it's that type of day, okay?
How are
All
you,
right, total
Dom?
disrespect.
What up,
I'm
what up?
coming into the meeting,
Y'all are
okay?
killing it over there.
Yo, just slammed one right now. My man, when I got on the phone, he said, what did he say? He goes, I just want to get some information for my fiance. Yeah. I said, information doesn't help your fiance. Insurance helps your fiance. So we're going
Just
to get
like that.
insurance. We're going to get insurance today. That's your plan, right? Well,
It's like,
shit, it
yeah.
wasn't my plan, but I guess now it is. Yep.
No.
Yep. Now it's your plan. So that's what we're doing. $101 a month. Had to pivot too. $3 more.
There we
good.
go. There we
Good work.
go. Dom's always making it happen. That's for sure. Love it.
That's
Love
the kind
the
of day it is.
energy.
He's about to tackle me. He's fired up.
Yeah, he is.
Um, but the worst thing that could happen, like you aren't bothering these people, they're bothering you. You were just minding your own business, and now you got to call them 37 times in a row for them to answer. Who's the annoying one here? It's not you. It's them. Like once I really, and I think about that all the time. Like once I figured that out, I wasn't afraid to do it anymore. They asked for it. Even when they lie and say they didn't, they did. You didn't get any other way. They asked for it, right? Identity thieves, they don't request insurance information in your name. Like that's not what's going on. I don't know that's a category. Like they don't put that on the LifeLock commercials. Like that isn't what's going on. People did it. They just don't want to talk to you right now. So anyway, and they'll change their mind. They may not want to do whatever. But once you have in your mind that they're bothering you, you're not bothering them. You're doing your job. You're doing what they asked you to do.
And Trey, like for me too, not to chime in on you, but like that changed the game for me. Like, like I'm not bothering them, they're bothering me. That helped me triple dial when I first got started and I didn't want to triple dial. I'm like, they're bothering me. They're not answering. I'm taking my time every single day to call them. They're bothering me. They sent a request in. They're not answering, responding back to it. They're bothering me. When you can do that, and I think it all kind of coincides with what you're saying. It builds that muscle, right, Trey, that you're talking about of being able to get the rejection and being able to get it and just brush it to the side and not care. Because you're like, they're bothering me. Like Bob wanted to be mean. All right, great. Bob was bothering me. Now we're good to go. Bob's all set. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you got to go one way or the other, but you can't stay stuck there. So that's huge.
Amen to that. Now, as far as your goals, the other thing I want to talk about is like your daily method of operation and the activity. Like, I probably have gone through more mental up and down, like that I really want to share, but I've gone and I can tell you how I get out of it. Like, the thing you'll find out, the people that are really successful in FFL, it's not that they don't have down times, it's just they spend less time being down. Everybody goes through it. It's just what used to take you out for a week takes you out for like 10 minutes. That's that's it. And a big thing that's helped me over time, and I always have to get back to, is like inventorying my time and thinking about when I'm starting, how I'm spending my mornings, and how I end my day. And I bookend it and then I move on. And not every day is perfect, but if you're waking up at 10 in the morning, like you're doing, like you have to be a morning person in order for this to work. Like there's somebody that heard me say that and go, well, it's working for me and I'm not a morning person. Well, you're more of a morning person than you used to be. You're not waking up at 11. I know that. right? You might get up at 8 now, but you're more of a morning person than you used to be. For me, if I'm not out of bed and like moving by 5, because I need a few hours in the morning just to get right and be prepared to go do the activity long enough to have the success. And so, not running by the seat of your pants all the time, but actually being planful and mindful. A book I read that helped me a ton is called Miracle Morning. And I practice that. I still practice that. I get off track from time to time, and probably watch television in the morning when I probably shouldn't. But whenever I need to get back on track, that's kind of like my go-to thing. Like, what am I going to do? I'm gonna wake up. I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna have silence, or I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna do my affirmations. I'm gonna envision how the day's gonna go. I'm gonna exercise. I'm gonna read, and I'm gonna write. And for me, what I would do is write my goals every single day in a little journal. This is what I want to do by when. This is why, and I would write about it. Writing clarifies thought, and I would exercise, and I read at least 10 pages of a good book a day. So it gives me stuff to talk to people about. Um, it keeps my mind fresh. It keeps me engaged and thoughtful about the student part of this business. I tell you what, if you can stay a student at this for the whole time that you're doing it, you'll consistently get better. Always trying to learn and get better, always trying to take from people that are further along in the process, or they've refined their process more, and you trying to implement those things. That makes it less like work and more like I'm trying to implement these things on my next rep. And all it really is, and all, especially doing this on the phone, it really is just reps. It's just time on the phone. At the end of the day, that's actually all it is. Now, the trap is, am I on Zoom all day, not dialing myself, but listening to everybody else? If that's the case, you're not going to make any money doing that. You have to dial. You have to be you have to be the one making the outbound calls too. You can't just vicariously live off everybody else's success. But if you put the time in and you do the reps, it's impossible for it not to work because the people are asking for the insurance and you do it with a good attitude. So, as far as goals, the goals I want you to think about setting are process goals, not destination goals. Like what is the process that I have to complete in order to get the result? Am I actually working 40 hours a week? Am I spending 40 hours a week either booking appointments to talk to people about insurance or talking to people about insurance? Or recruiting people to book appointments and talk to people about insurance? Am I doing one of those three things during those 40 hours? And it doesn't have to be 80 hours. It doesn't have to be 110 hours. Sometimes people wear that like too much of a badge of honor. Like, I worked 196 hours this week. I am better than you. I think we all have to work really hard. That's important. 50, 60-hour work weeks, especially if you're building a team, is normal. Like, that's normal. It's 40 hours selling and like 40 hours recruiting. That's how it goes for a season, for sure. But most of y'all are just getting started. Like, let's just see if you can dial for 6 hours straight. Like, like if you never did 6 hours and you did 6 hours and you booked 6 appointments, you got 6 people to get a pin and you sold one, that's better than saying you're going to do 12 over and over and over and not doing one. Like, let's celebrate the progress along the way of what it is that you're trying to do and get excited about the progress that you're actually making. You can't grow from where you think you should be. You can only grow from where you're actually at. And so let's talk about where we're at. Let's move forward from there and be mindful of how you spend your time. But focusing on the process goals, not just the destination. Like, what does the process look like? Okay, if my process goal, like I want to do 10K, well, what's that process? Maybe I have to spend $2,000 on leads for the week. If I get $2,000 on leads and I get 90 vet leads, and how am I going to work those leads? How many times can I call them 3 times in a row? When do I start dialing? When do I stop dialing? How many days? If I say I'm going to start at 8, do I start at 8? And when you do that, that's a win. When I say I'm going to do it on Zoom, am I on Zoom? Am I unmuted? Am I asking for feedback and positive criticism to get better? And do I take it that way? You know, one of the hardest things to deal with as a manager is like when you give somebody advice and they go, "Oh, I know I did that. I know I did that." No, you didn't do that. That's why we're telling you. Like, stop it. Just feel like, okay, I'll do better. You know, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to take it personal, even if I was wrong. Like, I've had people do this to me in the business. Like, they're thinking about me 6 months ago, and they're trying to give me advice for today, and their advice is from 6 months ago. And I've grown, I've changed. And what I want to do is like, well, that was me 6 months ago. But I go, no, you're right. Like, you definitely got to keep working on that. Yes, thank you. You know, because it stops things from becoming like this festering, like annoying problem in your life. If you could just be like, yep, that's what I do. Yes, that's exactly what I need to do. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'll do that. And then try to do it instead of being offended. People get too offended for like no reason, stuff that doesn't even matter. So I don't know. I feel like I went on a few tangents, but hopefully that helped. If y'all have any specific questions, let me know.
No, that was awesome. And I think like kind of like what you started with too, Trey, is like kind of how you essentially like go from process goals, not destination goals, because you got to work it backwards, right? Asking
Right.
yourself those questions, if you will, of like, like kind of what went right, what went wrong, what, could I have done better? Who should I have spoke more to? Who should I have spoke less to, right? And also just taking into account perspective. I think that when we're setting goals, sometimes we might just want to write things down on a piece of paper just to say, hey, Trey, I have a goal, right? But it's like, if we don't know the process of how to get there, the goal doesn't matter, right? So it's like, guys, everything Trey said, like decide I will until, meaning like decide I will do this until I figure it, because you will figure it out. Just like Trey also said, in terms of if you're here, like he said, I don't know anyone that's been here for a year consistently and isn't like doing well. Like no one is. Like I don't know anybody either, Trey, that actually like works and does what they say they're going to do, right? And where do I want to go and how am I going to get there, guys? I think that when we ask these questions, and like Trey said, reverse engineering it backwards as a process, right? Like sometimes that process might be, I need Trey to tell me like, hey, the way you're running the team right now, it needs to be different. I think it should look ABC. I can take that one of two ways. I can be like, you know what? Trey doesn't know anything about this business. And you know what? I've been doing this and it's working. No, or I could take Trey's advice and be like, thank you, Trey, for pointing that out because nobody else cared enough to point it out. I appreciate you and implement it and move on. And guys, that's how we grow. That's how we process. That's how we hit goals, right? If you think of what any other goal, whether that was, I don't know, me in high school cheering or you in, whatever, pick your favorite sport or pick your favorite show or whatever you were in as a kid, we got better with our coaches, right? Like that's how we got better. Without them, still as adults, guys, we're not going to get better if there's nobody there saying, hey, by the way, like you could do this a little bit better. Because I appreciate every time Trey tells me, like, hey, you could do this a lot better. Like, I'm not like, oh, I'm so offended. Do you think that Trey hates me? I'm like, no, I actually think Trey cares about me because he took time out of his day to go over what I could be doing better because he's seeing it happen. Right, guys? So I think being able to take those criticisms as they're constructive and helpful for you and for me, right? For everybody. And then just being mindful, like Trey said, work the process. Don't go to just to the destination. Or look at your current process and say, what destination am I expecting from my current process? And see if it's going to get you there, right? For some of us, hey, it will get us there. For some of us, we're going to make, okay, we got to tweak and adjust. So, Trey, I loved how you talked about, essentially like working it backwards and you put a lot of essentially perspective into the whole piece of that. Does anybody have questions for Trey? Feel free to unmute. I know somebody got a question on here.
And even as much as like, and I know somebody will ask a question, but even as much as like just getting started, the script, like I don't know if y'all ever played a musical instrument. So my kids, Emery plays guitar and Harper plays drums. Um, and his guitar teacher, the guy's name is, he teaches both. They both learn from this guy. His name is Happy. He's a Chinese dude, and he's a cool guy. And so works out of this music shop. We go in there and do our music lessons. And Harper, specifically with the drums, was always trying to like go ahead, you know? And he's like, how, and if you set Happy in front of the drums and give him the music and he hears the music little thing in the back, like keeping count, like he can play anything. I mean, he can literally play anything. Maybe not the first time around, but he can figure it out fast. And Harper's like, well, how do I do that? Like I need to go to the next lesson. I need to go to the next lesson. And then Happy would be like, no, like you gotta be successful at the simple songs. Like, how do you get better? You gotta be successful at the simple song. Do the simple songs better. That's what this is. Like it's how can you get better at the script? How can you get better at the timing? How can you get better at your tonality? What can you do different? What can you glean from what other people said and how they handled this and how do you implement it? And so many people are caught up on not even knowing the script yet. But what I want you to get is like your job in the beginning is just really memorize the script. And it's okay. It's on the job training. We're going to call people up. You're going to mess it up. They want the insurance bad enough. They're still going to buy it and you're going to make some money and you'll learn. But what we don't want to do is be in the same place we are 6 months from now, talking about nobody's helping us. We don't know how to do it. Because if you literally just get good at the simple song, and you make that the purpose of like your whole existence here, it has to work. The rejection, you don't really get it. You don't really get rejection the longer you do this. Like there's people used to always be like, well, how do you overcome? I want to think about it. Like they really just they don't say that anymore, really. Not the ones that are going to get it, you know, because I learned to overcome that stuff beforehand because I got good at playing the simple song really, really well rather than going on, the drum solo.
Right.
So
I love that. That's a great analogy, actually. Like, stay with the simple songs, and that's where you win.
yeah, and you could always go back to it, and you could always improve it, and you can make it fun. And this is fun. This shouldn't be just total drudgery all day, every day, where you hate your life.
Right.
Even though at the beginning it might feel like it's like that, it gets easier. And when it gets easier is when you don't have to think about it anymore. You just do it. That's when it gets easier, and then you can
For
actually
sure.
focus on the people. Uh,
Legit. And, Heather put a question in the chat. She said, for a new agent, how would you suggest they help the family adapt to working at home and the demanding schedule of what they need to do to make the money that they want?
well, I think we need to spend time with people early on, really trying to figure out what it is that they want and understanding their situation, and then letting them know in no uncertain terms what it's actually going to take. And that's the advantage. When you write 70 grand in a month, um, you know exactly what that takes. But most people don't need 70 grand in a month to like fix the problem they have right now. They just need to pay their electric bill. So as much as we want to talk about the big, huge numbers that people are putting up in the team, let's talk about Mary, where she's at, what she needs to pay her bills, what she needs to pay her bills and be able to afford leads, what her ultimate goal is 90 days from now, a year from now. One of the questions I'll ask is I'll be like, Mary, a year from now, when you're wildly successful at this, what does that look like? What are you expecting from it? And I get them to tell me what their income goal is, what they think would be a good lifestyle, what they would do with the money. I help them spend it. I try to figure out where they're at, try to figure out what's coming in, who's in their corner, who thinks this is a bad idea. Is there other income coming into the house? What happens if they don't do it? I have conversations along these lines so that when it comes time to talk about the amount of work that they're going to put in, we can really put something together and I can show them worst case scenario. If you do this, you can have this expectation. And then these are going to be some of the major roadblocks that you're going to have is when we put this plan into place, there's going to be a lot of distractions because you've never worked for yourself before. So now everybody's going to try to get your time. Like you used to be gone all day working. Now all of a sudden your kids think you're supposed to spend 10 hours a day with them. You used to spend 20 minutes a day with them. And now you feel guilty because you're around. Like, how about we just, if the door's shut, don't come in, and I do this, and helping them understand the boundaries they need to set with their family, helping them understand the reward of if I hit this number by this, I can reward myself. If I don't hit these goals by this time, then this is the consequence. I have to do more time on the weekend. Helping them understand with their family that that's what that looks like. If we do this, then this can happen. If I fail to hit this, then in order for me to be where I need to be, then I'm going to have to work Saturday and Sunday. And just getting clear, sitting down with your family and getting clear about what it looks like. Like I remember being in the field early on, and I hated going to my last appointments. Like the last appointments of the day were the hardest ones. Because if I had a really good day and I made money, I was like, hey, I made money. I'm already up. Like I just want to go home and watch Dateline. And so, you know, and then if I was having a bad day, I would say to myself, well, crap, I'm already having a bad day. They're probably not going to buy it anyway. And then Jere would call and she would say something like, um, she would say, when are you coming home? And I'm like, well, I have 6 appointments left, so I'm coming home right now. And then I would, I'd go home. But what I had to talk to Dravis about was like, hey, when you call, don't say when are you coming home. Say, what time is your last appointment? See, she started asking me what time the last appointment was. I was like, it was 8:30. Then she was like, okay, so it'll take an hour. All right, it's a 2-hour drive. You'll be home about midnight. Got it. You know?
Right.
And it was a total different dynamic because I I taught my family how to work with me, you know. So yeah, that's
And
I
that
don't
and
know.
that's huge. I like that. How you're like, the question has to be what time is my last appointment, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm coming home now, right? And it's like it's easy for us guys to do that so much, especially in the virtual world, right?
Especially on the phone, yeah.
Your friend calls like, hey, what are you doing? You want to get lunch? And you're like, you have like appointments or you should be dialing. That's what you told yourself you're going to do. And like, now you're going to get lunch. And now whatever lunch turns into, you're at the mall, then you're back home at 9. And then you're like, oh, I'm just going to pick it back up tomorrow. It's like, guys, if you help let your friends, family, the people who influence you, the people you want to be around, the people you love, hey, you help them understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. Is everybody going to understand on the first time that you explain it to them? Absolutely not. We'd all be lying if we said that. But on the other side of that, when they start seeing the reward, if you will, whether that's for yourself, your family, them, right? Whatever it is, it's like, okay, hey, now I understand why you're home all the time, but you need a babysitter still, right? Because you can't watch the kids and be plugged into dials at the same time and get your job done because you have a real job. And guys, we all run a business. Whether you think you do or you think you don't, you run a business, right? So that needs to be part of the conversation. Is like, I am growing my business. People want to laugh at you in the beginning. People laughed at me. That's cool. People still laugh at me. I'm okay with that, though. I'm good with that because guess what? I know where this business has gotten me and what it's provided for me, my family, and the people that actually care about me, right? So it's like when you're in that predicament, just like Trey said, everyone's going to kind of communicate a bit differently depending on your situation, if you will. But I think helping folks see where you're at and also helping, like Trey used that great example of like, hey, when are you going to be home tonight versus like, hey, what time's your last appointment, right? Those are two different questions when you're in the field. Same thing like telesales. Hey, like how many more sits do you have to have until you're done for the day? I don't know what that question is going to sound like for you asking your partner or explaining to your children. But just like Trey said, the door is shut, mom's busy, whatever it might be. There's different ways to go about it, guys. But I really think it's helping your family get on the same page as you. And as soon as you're on that page and you're following it, they're going to start following it along with you quicker that way versus if you just don't do what you say you're going to do. So that's my rant there at the end, Trey. But I appreciate you so much being on with us. I know I took a lot from it today, especially talking about process goals, because I know that even in the goals I've already kind of written down and just wanted to go into the new year with, I've really focused on destination goals, guys. And you know what Trey Honeycutt also taught me? Everyone's consistent at something. You're consistently sleeping in late. You're consistently waking up early. You consistently work out. You consistently don't move your body, right? Like you're doing one or the other. So I think that process goals, that's my biggest takeaway for me today versus destination goals, because we always got to engineer it backwards. So Trey, I really appreciate you being on with us, and I appreciate your time and your help just with everything with the team. You're amazing.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on. And I'll see you
Absolutely.
guys at the conference. So I can't wait to see everybody and come up and say hi if I haven't met you. And it's going to be a good one. It's going to be the best one we ever had. So can't wait to see
Thank you,
everyone there.
Trey. Absolutely. We'll see you there, Trey. Thank you.
Thanks, Trey.